So I think Shang-Chi is really, really great.
Nani?
So today I basically watched Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and I enjoyed it. Now, honestly speaking, I didn't think that this movie was going to fail. I thought that the trailers, the action were cool, but I just wasn't hyped because even as a Marvel fan, I was not very familiar with the character of Shang-Chi. So I couldn't care less about seeing this film. A number of people even said that this film was going to be Marvel's first failure because Shang-Chi was a lesser known character played by an unfamiliar actor. This added to the people's belief that the film was going to be a box office bomb. But once the film was then known to general audiences in cinemas, the people loved it and enjoyed it. And it had the largest mid-pandemic gross income in the MCU. Now, basically to start off to tell you what this film is about, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is a 2021 Phase 4 Marvel movie centered on a protagonist named Shang-Chi.
Is it not obvious?
Who was trained to be a skilled assassin by his father, Wen-Wu, who leads a criminal organization named the Ten Rings. The story focuses on Shang-Chi's life years after escaping his father's organization. Now today I will be talking about why I think Shang-Chi is a good film with some flaws. The choreography and the movements here are just very fluid. The film has possibly the best fights in a Marvel movie, which you don't usually see. The fights here look very well in sync. In fact, the movements look so well packed in each scene that each form of movement here looks like a dance. In fact, there is a conveying art of emotion and difference of thematic in each fight scene. Take the Wen-Wu and the Ying-Li duel scene for example. It seemed very loose and it seemed like a very serene form of combat. The emotion and eye contact in the scene made the fight look like a courtship dance. You could feel the romance, you could feel the intimacy between both of these characters. While Shang-Chi's bus scene was a dangerous and deadly fight, because while his movements were fluid and well precised, the ending moves were always stiff and on alert. And of course, the final confrontation scene between Shang-Chi and Wen-Wu made it feel like a comical and anime-like fight. The camera movement was always in dynamic, that it felt like the audience moved along with the character in each fight scene. I also did like the fact that this movie had less cuts in between the action, unlike in other movies like Captain America: The Winter Soldier, wherein the cuts had so much transitioning that it was dizzy and a bit hard to tell what was going on, which was a waste because I think the choreography in that film was great too. I also do love the presence of Tony Leung's acting in this film, because I personally liked his less dialogue, more body movement and eye emotion acting in his Wong Kar-wai films, like In the Mood for Love or Chungking Express. And this acting, even the simplest facial expressions from Tony Leung, were enough to convey a sense of power in the room. I basically considered him a very intimidating and a powerful character throughout the film, and it helped a lot that Tony Leung brought depth and power to the role of Shu Wen-Wu. So much of his eye and expression-based acting is seen in parts of the movie, like the part of his Ying-Li fight. While it doesn't have a single line of dialogue, it feels more romantic and intimate than most of the Hollywood romance films. While I did say that Tony Leung had one of the best stellar scenes of acting in this film, same goes for the other actors as well, like Simu Liu and Meng Zhang, who portray Shang-Chi and Xi Xialing respectively. Both of them played their roles very well as victimized children by their father, carrying a lot of burdens and a darker past. And this is seen through their interactions and their eye expression acting as well. And Simu Liu's energy coupled with Awkwafina's Katie really brightens the movie up, and I am so happy that for once Marvel tried to not force a romantic relationship between the main characters. Compared to other forced romances in the MCU like Thor and Jane, Bruce and Black Widow, Doctor Strange and Girl I Don't Remember, which did not at all service the plot and was unnecessary. And if you do notice, most of the performances here were good, not because of the solo performances, but because of the dynamic and the chemistry between these characters and actors. Character dynamic and interactions between Shang-Chi and Katie were cool in scenes like the karaoke bar, him and Katie working together as hotel valets, or sometimes just them hanging out. And I do like this because we get to see Shang-Chi's humanized side, and also this is the side where he basically puts his guard down as Katie is his closest friend. We get to see a more tamer side to him. And also the second great dynamic and chemistry here was Shang-Chi's interaction with his father, Wenwu. Simu Liu does a great job of Shang-Chi of conveying somehow fear and anguish and somewhat resentment towards his father whenever Wenwu appeared on screen. It was one of the better highlights of the film to see the feud of family drama, mostly between Wenwu and Shang-Chi, and how both of them had basically unresolved issues and resentment towards each other. And in a world full of misunderstanding and often unreasonable parents sometimes, it was something refreshing to see in the MCU, and it was also something nice to relate to.
And you did nothing. You stood at a window and watched her die.
I also do think that it was a good directorial choice, that the film also did try to be somehow divisive from the larger MCU properties and movies. They did show glimpses that Shang-Chi was connected to the Marvel Universe, but not enough to take full attention away from the wide cast of Shang-Chi. Unlike in Spider-Man Homecoming, which featured Tony Stark and distracted us from Peter Parker, this movie feels less and less of a Marvel movie, which is something that I don't feel from other Marvel movies. It feels standalone, it feels unique, and it feels like its own thing. However, I do think one of the film's biggest issues is that it introduces a lot of concepts, characters, drama, and ideas, and often underuses or mishandles them. Specifically that of the character Xi Xiaoling, who was severely underused. She was an okay character in the film that had the potential to be a dramatically great character, because in the story, she is Shang-Chi's sister who is neglected by Wenwu and escapes home in order to run away from the abusive household. It would have been nice for us to see a character dynamic between Wenwu and Xi Xiaoling in order for us to feel the abuse that Xiaoling suffered by Wenwu. Yeah, Shang-Chi was abused as well, but his trauma overshadowed a lot of Xi Xiaoling's trauma just because he was the main character. And it would have been nice if both of them had a fair share of trauma throughout the story, so that we could actually feel for both Shang and Xi Xiaoling instead of feel for them separately. And also, bits of logic are somehow lacking in this film, like Katie joining Shang on his mission to find his sister. However, Katie does not have any experience or helpful skills at all to contribute, which could make her a liability in the fight later on. Or how immigrant hotel valets like Katie and Shang are able to easily afford plane tickets going abroad. Or even Wenwu, being a brilliant, a cunning, and a ruthless warlord, is easily charmed by a voice that he was hearing in his head.
来救我！快来救我！
His motivation was basically nice because it was family-centered, but the driving force of a voice in his head turning him evil just made him look kind of a dumb character. I mean, he saw the dragons coming out of the mountain he thought his wife was trapped in, right? Or even the use of Shang-Chi and Xi Xiaoling's pendants to find Ta Lo, when they could have used the faceless animal named Maurice to find it, which Wenwu basically already had. And speaking of Shang-Chi as a character, while he was charming and while he was good in the film, he just felt like a passive protagonist in the movie. He doesn't have much stake in the film, and it feels like he's just along for the ride most of the time. Because in the first act, after the bus fight scene, he was actually not needed in the plot anymore, as his stake in the plot was because of his necklace that he was wearing. But after that, the necklace was taken in the bus, and the only motivation Shang-Chi had left throughout the entire film was to take down his father. But it doesn't affect the plot either way until the very ending. The final CGI dragon fight was also pure crap and very formulaic for Marvel. It took away so much of the development of the Shang-Chi vs. Wenwu family drama that this film spent a large chunk of time trying to build, and also the opportunity to be a different film. But Marvel instead wasted money on a VFX dragons instead of building some great character dynamic and finding a proper ending to Wenwu's arc. However, I don't think these problems would bother you as much as it did for me, because most of it is basically overshadowed by good stuff, like the great visuals, the fight choreography, the rich cultural significance, the chemistry between the characters, the compelling family drama, and Tony Leung's acting. This movie is basically a great, entertaining Kung Fu x Marvel film that provides a good portion of something different from usual Marvel movies that we've seen in the past. Excluding Loki, however, because that is an MCU TV show that tried to be a detective mystery thriller, which was something nice and different, which is something that I do think Marvel needs to do instead of being oversaturated in the same repetitive Marvel formula. I think if Marvel wants to succeed, they just have to keep trying to create new ways on how to create new heroes in good and interesting ways. And Shang-Chi succeeds at being different in a lot of ways possible. And I am quite excited to see him in other Marvel movies. So I'm going to give Shang-Chi an 8.5 out of 10. So that basically concludes my Shang-Chi review, guys. And if you have any other opinions and thoughts about the movie, you can click down the comments below and discuss it over there. And if you have any other movies that you want me to review, you can also comment it down there. And don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, and also check out all my other socials. And I hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye.